Hey guys, thanks for joining me for episode of Play Games. My name is Lance, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Pandemic Rapid Response. This is a new game by Z-Man Games. It is a 2 to 4 player game that takes roughly 20 to 30 minutes to play, and is a fully cooperative game, so all the players are working together to defeat the game itself. So if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference, helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. If you want to stay up to date on all my videos, also consider ringing that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. Each player is going to receive their own set of six-sided dice that'll have different faces on each of the sides, which are vaccine, power, first aid, water, food, and plane. And you'll also notice these three bottom, the water, food, and plane, are circled with a color. And this will be significant later on when I go into detail about the recycling center. There are 3 different decks of cards included in the game. The first one we have here are the city cards, and each one of these is going to list a location around the world that has had a disaster happen in it and the supplies that are needed to aid them. So for example, with Mexico City, they need 2 first aid, a vaccine, and power. The second deck of cards we have are the role cards, and each player will be dealt one of these at the beginning of the game. Each role card is going to have a name of that character and their role, where they start on the game board, and their special effect that the player can use during their turn. And the final deck of cards we have are the crisis cards, and this deck is an optional deck that should not be added to your game until you have a full understanding of how to play. There are 3 different crisis cards included in the deck. The first one we have are the immediate crisis cards, which will take effect and then be discarded. Then we have the temporary crisis cards, which when they come up, you'll be placed on top of the city deck, and this will last for a full timer cycle. When the timer runs out, then this card will be discarded. And then the final one we have are the delivery crisis cards. With these, you'll place that on the current city, and instead of delivering to the city, you must deliver to the crisis card first, removing it, and then you can do another delivery afterwards by activating and spinning a die again to deliver to your city. And I'll cover this more at the end of the video. And then the last thing I want to cover before moving into the setup is the game board itself, which is broken down into 4 sections, as you can see on this chart here. The first section we have is the HQ, and this is going to have a location for the city location deck and your sand timer and extra tokens you have. Then we have the different supply areas. There are 5 of them. Again, food, energy, vaccines, water, and first aid. Then the next section is the recycling center, and as the game goes on and you get resources from the different locations, the recycling is going to work its way up. If it ever reaches the last point on the track, the game is over and the players have lost. So throughout the game, the players are going to have to go to this location and recycle stuff to decrease the waste that they have. Finally, we have the cargo bay. As the players get the different resources from locations, they're going to go into the cargo bay, and then they're going to have to place a plane die there to activate and deploy the cargo into a city that they need to. Moving into setup, go ahead and place the recycling token out, and then you can also place out 3 of the tokens in the HQ along with the sand timer. The other 6 tokens can be placed off to the side of the board, which will be gathered later in the game. Then go ahead and place out the different resources in each one of the rooms based on their color, and it doesn't matter where you place these in the room. Then go ahead and grab the location deck, shuffle it up, and reveal the top card. This will be the location your plane will start in, so we'll start in Delhi. This location will be returned to the box as you won't use it. Then, based on the chart here, you're going to choose a difficulty. And for the first couple games, it's recommended to go with an easy difficulty and then work your way up from there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys an easy game. So we'll reveal the top 2 locations, and these will be our starting locations. So we have Tokyo and Mexico City. Then we will select or deal out a number of locations to the location deck in the HQ based on our difficulty. So we are going to have 3 locations in there. All the rest of the locations can be returned to the game box as you won't use them for this game. Then for player setup, each player will choose a color and receive the player token for that. They will receive the 6 dice for that color and a quick reference guide. And then you can go ahead and grab the roll cards, shuffle those up, and deal 1 to each player face up, and that will be that player's roll. The rest of the cards can be returned to the game box again as you won't use those for this game. Then each player's roll card will tell where that player starts so they can place their pawn in there. So we have 1 player starting in the energy and 1 in food. And then the last thing again is optional. If you are experienced with the game and you want to add the crisis card deck, you can go ahead and shuffle that off and place it up on the side of the HQ somewhere, and then you'll use that. And I'll explain how that works later on in the video. Pandemic Rapid Response is played in real time, where during each player's turn they're going to be moving around the board, trying to gather resources, controlling their waste, moving to the cargo bay, dropping off supplies, and moving their plane around. And the players are going to try to do this as fast as they possibly can, passing from player to player until either the time runs out and the players lose, or the players are able to handle all the disasters in all of the cities in the city location deck. To start the game, you're going to choose one player to be the starting player, so we're going to have our silver player be the starting player. And then when that player is ready, you're ready to begin the game by flipping over the sand timer, and then that player can start their turn. So at the beginning of a player's turn, they're going to gather any dice on their roll card and any dice that they have. If there are any dice on the game board, they're locked and that player cannot roll those. From there, then they'll go ahead and roll their dice that they have, and then they can assign those dice and do different things throughout their turn. And I'm going to go through each one of those actions individually. From there, during their turn, at any time during their turn, if they have dice remaining, they can choose to save any dice that they have and then re-roll any of the dice that they want to up to 2 times. The only dice that they cannot re-roll are dice that are spent already and placed on their roll card, or dice that they have locked on the game board. So from there, let's go ahead and take a look at the different actions that we can do during our turn. To perform a move action, a player can spend any symbol on any die, placing that die on their roll card, and then they can move to an adjacent room. So for example, with our silver player here, by spending a die, he can move into the energy room, going through this open door. He can move into the vaccine room by going through that door, or the recycle center by going through this door. And you can do this any number of times during your turn. To move the plane along the flight path, you'll have to spend a plane die onto your roll card, and you can do this any number of times that you have the plane symbol on your dice. Each time you do this, you can move the plane forward 1 place on that flight path or back 1 space on that flight path. In order to gain supplies from a room, you must assign dice on the track. And each of the room's tracks is broken into multiple sections, which is going to be divided by these little pointed arrows going in that direction. So you'll always start with the recycle side and then work your way down assigning dice to it. The more dice you assign, the more cubes you'll receive in supplies from that room. And in order to assign dice, you have to match the die of the symbol in that room, so we can only place can symbols in this room, and you must assign dice to all of the spaces of a given section. So for example, with this first one, we only need 1 can symbol. But if we wanted to assign can symbols to the second section, we would need 2 symbols on our dice results before we can place them in there. We could not place 1 and then roll again and place another one. We have to place them all at the same time, and multiple players can be working in the same room. So if our other player took a turn and rolled a couple cans, he could come over here and place those in here as well. These dice are going to remain locked until this room is activated. Now you can choose to activate a room anytime during your turn, and once you activate a room, you'll gain a number of supplies from there based on where you activate. So if we activated the food room now, we would receive 1 cube that'll be moved to the cargo bay, as long as there's spaces open on the cargo bay. And then any dice that we use, they're going to go ahead and roll those dice. And then for each circle symbol that comes up, which again is going to be the plane, the food, or the water, is going to add 1 to the recycling center's waste track. Now, if this track ever reaches the last space on that track, then the players have lost. And the dice that are used will be given back to the players, and they'll be added to their roll cards, and they'll be able to use those during the next turn. When the player is in the recycling center, they can lock dice in the different areas to try to decrease the amount of waste that is in that room. In order to do this, the player must lock a different symbol in each one of the different spots that is different from any other symbol that they've played so far. So for example, with our player, we could play a vaccine, an energy, a water, and a plane, and the first aid, since we have 5 different symbols. But let's go ahead and say we only had 3 different symbols. Now, anytime during the player's turn again, they can activate this, removing these dice and adding them back to the roll card, and then reducing the track that number of spaces based on where the dice were. So we would be able to reduce the track by 1 in that situation. Once the plane is on a city location of a city that has a disaster card on it, and the players have the required supplies in the cargo bay, a player can move to the cargo bay, and they must spend a plane icon on there in order to distribute the necessary supplies to that city. From there, they'll remove those supplies from the cargo bay and add them back to the different rooms that they came from, and then discard the city card of the city they just dispersed the supplies onto. And the last thing, when completing a location card, the players are also going to receive a time token that will be added to the HQ from the general supply that they set off to the side during setup. In this way, the players will gain more time for the game. When the sand timer runs out, then the game will be paused. No player can discuss any strategy or continue playing during this time. From there, then one time token is going to be discarded back to the box. These are single use, so you will not be able to regain these when lost. And then you'll reveal the top city card and place that along the flight path. If there are no city cards left, then you will skip that step. At that point, then you'll flip over the sand timer and the turn will continue with the active player. The game is going to end in 3 ways. If the recycle token ever reaches the last space on the recycle track, or if the sand timer runs out and there are no more time tokens remaining, then the players will immediately lose the game. If the players are able to get supplies to all of the cities that are out on the board and all the cities in the city deck, then the players have won the game immediately. If you would like to add the Crisis deck to your game, go ahead and shuffle up those cards and place that deck out off to the side. And then each time the sand timer runs out, you'll go ahead and draw the top card of that deck and resolve its effects. And there are 3 different cards. We have the immediate cards, which you'll resolve the effects immediately and then discard that card. So with this one, we have a supply spill. And this one says that we return 1 crate from the cargo bay to its room. So you'll choose one of these supply crates and return it to its room, and then discard this card. Then we have the temporary effects, and with these you're going to place this on top of the city card deck, and then this is going to be in effect until the sand timer runs out again. At that point, then this card will be discarded from the deck, and then you can continue on. And the final type of card we have are the delivery cards. So when one of these cards comes up, you will place it in the city closest to where you're currently at, and when you go to that city, and when you deploy the cargo bay, you must meet the requirements of this first, discarding this card. And each time you activate the cargo bay, you can only drop for 1 card. So we could not drop for this and Tokyo. We must do this one first, and then drop again from the cargo bay, spending another die, and then we can drop in Tokyo. Now that I've taken you through all the different actions that a player can do, let's put it all together and show you a turn in action. So again, we'll go ahead and have the silver player start us out. And the one other thing that I want to point out that I hadn't really gone into yet are the roll cards, as each roll card is going to have a special ability the player can use during their turn. So with our silver player here, he can use, on his turn, his dice showing the plane can be turned to any other side. So that's a good way for that player to get resources that they need if they roll a lot of planes. They can also use the plane die as a regular plane symbol to move the plane around in that as well. So let's go ahead and start. We'll flip over the time token, or the sand timer, and we'll start by taking our turn. So we have a recycle token and a plane, so we'll set that off to the side. That's our initial roll. Then we have up to 2 re-rolls that we can do during our turn. We have 2 more plane symbols and another recycle symbol, so we'll go ahead and change one of those to a recycle, and we'll do the same with these 2. From there, then we'll go ahead and activate the room. We'll take over 3 supplies as shown on the side there to the cargo bay. And then we have to roll these dice to determine how much waste we create. So we have 1, 2, 3 wastes, and then these will go into our roll card and are locked. From there, then let's go ahead and use this last symbol to move, and then it'll move over to our next player's turn. Now the other thing to point out is that a player does not have to spend all of their dice in that. If a player is going after certain things, they may want to just jump to the next player right away after they've done a little bit. So let's go ahead and start with our next player here. He's going to go ahead and spend a die to move the plane, and his special ability allows him to move the plane up to 2 spaces for each plane symbol that he used. So he'll do that again so that we can have the plane on Tokyo. Then he will spend one of his dice to move into the vaccine area, roll again, and spend another die to move into the first aid area, and his last reroll, nothing, so then we'll pass it back over to our player here, who will move and set that off to the side, reroll. Nothing. We got 2 planes, so we'll go ahead and lock there and change these 2 to first aid. And our last reroll, nothing. So passing it back over to our player here, he'll gain all of his dice back and try again. He has nothing that he needs, so his second roll and his final reroll. He has 1 more that he'll lock, and he'll activate that room, getting 2 tokens over here. He'll go ahead and roll those. He got 3 more wastes, so our players are not doing good on the waste. Our players will get their dice back, and it'll head over to our green player to go, or our silver player. That player is going to go ahead and roll. And the timer is out. So at this point, then we have to discard a sand token, and this will go back to the box. It will not be added here. And then we have to reveal a new city card. So we have Los Angeles. And then the sand timer will be flipped, and we'll go ahead and continue our turn. So again, our player will go ahead and move. He's going to spend 1 to move here, 1 to move here, 1 to move here, and finally 1 to move into the cargo bay. He'll spend the plane to activate the cargo bay and drop off in Tokyo, spending the 2 first aid and 2 supply back to those rooms. This will be discarded, and we'll get another time token. From there, then it'll continue on with our players. This will go back to our player's area, and he has 1 die remaining if he needed to do anything else. And this is going to continue going back and forth until one of those endgame conditions is met. Well, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it and take into account everything you guys say to make the best possible videos. And if you found this video helpful, if you like what I do, please consider that like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really does make a big difference, helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.